Thank you all for coming. We've got a nice program for you here. I'm going to turn this over in a second to Councilmember Vice Mayor Pete Meitzner, who will introduce the other elected folks here and some of the other guests that we have. This is a big day for the city of Wichita. A lot of planning went into this, and we hope a lot of good comes from it. With that, Vice Mayor, why don't you take over?
Okay, I hope we don't disappoint your big day thoughts here. This is a big day. I want to thank everybody for showing up. This is an impressive audience here. Before we say what we need to say, it is an honor to have a number of officials here join us. I got my fellow council members, but I've got also Scott Wagner. Scott, raise your hand here. But Scott's he's a city council member of Kansas City, Missouri. Scott's been instrumental in assisting me personally and us as a city in maybe how to push these things forward because Kansas City kind of knows trains better than we do right now. But Scott, I'm going to ask Scott to say a few words in just a few minutes. But others we have here are Matt Zimmerman is also from he's a city manager at Emporia. Matt, raise your hand. So. We've got the Vice President of the Oklahoma Northern Alliance here, Gary Landman. There's Gary. How are you doing? As well as the President of the Northern Flyer Alliance, which is Deb Stout, and she's there. So please bear with me with a few of these introductions, but it's worth it just because without the support of our legislative group, this stuff wouldn't be happening for sure. Former State Representative Joanne Potoff's here. Joanne, thank you. Thank you for being here. She's been a friend of the city and friend of passenger rail service for a number of years. Well, before I was around years-wise. That's right. So my fellow city council member Jeff Blubaugh. He's only been on the council 1 month, and look what you've done, Jeff. Man, this is good stuff. Kind of like Susie Santo, she brings a bowling tournament, and fellow council member James Clendenin. He's been my wingman a number of times on this project, and Senator Carolyn McGinn. Senator, thank you for being here. My fellow council member Levanta Williams. Senator Aletha Faust. I already got you, Matt. Oh, James. Yes. My fellow council member, Jeff Longwell. He's thank you, Jeff. I'm not going to say anything more, Jeff. All right, so, on that one. A few other. There's. Bud Kortners from the Wichita Area Association of Realtors. Bud, thank you for being here. You've been a big supporter. KDOT is represented here by Tom Hine. Tom, I don't know if you're here or not, but thank you for Tom. There you go. Oh, I think Tom's recording this, so I don't say anything wrong. And obviously the leaders of our city from Gary Plummer, the chair of the chamber. I mentioned Susie Santo with Go Wichita. I'm probably missing a few others. So, well, that was in the ultimate is the friends at Occidental Management that have acquired this great building. Gary O'Borney and Chad Stafford lead that. And they've been kind enough to allow us in an iconic that we're here at this building to do this. I think Gary and I were talking this building. I might be 100 years old like next year. So 2014 will be 1914. So I think that's when Longwell. Did you fight in World War I? That was 1914. Okay. I know. Okay. All right. thank you all. How many here knew that tomorrow, the 11th of the month, is the National Train Day? Okay. Well, I didn't know there was such a thing either. A few of you, but we this timing was ironic that we put a lot of things together, and it comes together right now. National Train Day is tomorrow. We don't celebrate it much because we don't have train service here in Wichita, so that's one reason. But it was a good venue. We had some encouragement to celebrate a letter that kind of came together with some recent news, so this was a great day to do this. We've kind of got a three-tiered message here. The first biggest message is that the three mayors of Oklahoma City and Wichita and Kansas City, Missouri, have come together with a joint letter of endorsement and encouragement for us to move forward to connect that passenger rail from Oklahoma City through Wichita up to Newton. And that's a big deal. And so, thank you. We'll have copies of it, but it's a brief letter, but it also includes, if you all understand, for those, most of you know, but there's a gap connecting the whole country by Amtrak. It goes all over, but there is a gap. Texas and our friends in Oklahoma and Texas, they want to connect up north, and right now they got to go clear over to St. Louis, or they got to go clear over to Los Angeles, and so this becomes a kind of a logical thing. So when we started out on this, we endeavored to does this make sense? Not make sense because we love this building, and a lot of our fathers jumped to trains to go fight World War II out of this building, and it's awesome for the greatest generation. That's not why we wanted to do this, for good memories and because we love trains. And conversely, we didn't want to not do this because there's a lot of people in communities in the states and around the country that are really against spending a dollar on a lot of things, including maybe some infrastructural things and whatever. So both of those were not part of our conversation in the fact that we wanted to evaluate this from a commerce perspective. Is it worth doing this for the right reasons to connect Wichita and connect the I-35 corridor in a transportation mode? We're bringing in Southwest Airlines in a month or 3 weeks. Awesome. And we've got a new airport being built. Again, Jeff Blubaugh got on council, so we got a new airport being built. No, good job, Jeff. You're getting a lot of credit. No, but it just, you can't imagine. President Bardo at Wichita State University, there is something real about the I-35 corridor from all the way from San Antonio up to Kansas City. It has common, besides the highway and the people, it has a migration of census population moving towards that corridor, and President Bardo and I have talked a lot about things like that. He's very visionary about commerce, and he says that this kind of connectivity just further embeds Wichita right in that path, and so this is all about commerce. We have an aging population that wants to drive less and wants to relax. They don't want to be on the roads, and probably our friends at KDOT would rather have them in a train than on the roads. No, in some cases. That's me in about 10 years probably. But we have a young population that's going to school, that's delaying the purchases of cars. Obviously, we've got things about oil prices that fluctuate, that put pressure, insurance payments, da-da-da. So youth are using that as well. So there's a lot of good reasons. And then the key reason is the technology change that has happened in the last couple of years allows us to become productive workers while we're on things like trains. If you're driving to Topeka or Oklahoma City by yourself, you're not supposed to be working. You can be on your cell phone, speakerphone, whatever, but you cannot be on your iPad. Everybody, I think Senator McGinn still texts and drive, but don't tell anybody. She didn't want to. But anyway, the fact that now when the 100 people are getting on that train and 25 are seniors and 25 are youth and families and 50 of them are business people, what kind of hourly productivity happens on that 3-hour train ride? They are working, and that was the feedback that I was getting from our business community. I failed to recognize our steering committee members. It's kind of a list, so I don't want to do that, but I do want to honor the steering committee was leaders in our business entities, the West Stars, the Interest Banks, the Bank of Americas, those kind of places, and they were valuable input on our decision tree as we endeavored through this. So, if I can just highlight a couple of things in this joint mayor letter. Obviously, they recognize the value of the three cities connecting as critical population centers along this megapolitan I-35 corridor we talked about. It just helps secure the common interests that define our independent relationship. They acknowledge the economic, social, governmental, and cultural bonds that reflect our commonality here. And obviously, it closes the service gap. These three men, by signing this, it's the first time I'm hearing, I may be wrong, but it's the first time three cities like this have come together with the leaders at the mayor level to combine in a combined effort like that. And that's kind of unprecedented, and we truly appreciate the mayors for signing this letter. I guess I'll recognize them, but I wanted to allow, from a perspective that we're still learning about, but I wanted to allow a couple of people just to say a few words, and I want to invite Scott Wagner, the council member from Kansas City, Missouri, to feel free to share a couple of words. Scott, thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Greetings from Kansas City and from Mayor Sly James and the rest of the City Council. I have to say that viewing what was out on the table as I walked in here, if this is what you do every Friday afternoon in Wichita, I will be coming back very often and probably bringing others with me. But it is a pleasure to be here with you today. This really is unprecedented in so many ways, but there's a reason behind it, and I'll put it very succinctly. Trains mean business. Trains mean business. For Kansas City, it was why we have the Kansas City of today. The Hannibal Bridge, which was built in the late 1860s, opened up Kansas City and nearly tripled its population almost overnight. And in fact, if we had not done it, then the Kansas City that you know today may have actually been located in Atchison or Leavenworth. And there are probably some folks in Atchison and Leavenworth who would have preferred that today, but we did it. But it's what happens when you make a commitment to rail and rail travel. Just looking at it today, some have asked, why is Kansas City involved with this link between Wichita and Oklahoma City? And that's a fair enough question. The answer is pretty obvious. When we can link 2.5 million people from the Kansas City area to the 6.5 million people in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we benefit, and everyone in between benefits as well. Thank you. So, our hope is that we take this 3-mayor letter, and that 3 becomes 6, and becomes 12, and becomes 20, and becomes even more, because the reality of it is we will all benefit. And so it is very pleasing for me today to be here to join with the Vice Mayor, and Pete, I have to give you tremendous credit. You have worked, I'm standing up here. Frankly, he should be standing here for 30 minutes or more. Because I'm a late arrival in this process, and Pete, you have just done such wonderful work, and I also have to give credit to the Northern Flyer Alliance, to Deborah Fisher-Stout, who I'm sure will say a few words a little bit later. Without her constant phone calls and emails asking me where that signature is from Mayor James, we would probably not be here today. But all kidding aside, there are so many people who recognize the value of this, and we're just happy to be a part of it, and we are happy to also, and we will continue to bring in our partners on the Kansas side in Johnson County and Wyandotte County because they see the value as well, because we know that in order to get this done, it is not just a Wichita effort. It is a Kansas effort, and so we will do what we can to help bring other partners to the table as well. But thank you again, and thank you to all of you for all of your hard work.
All right, I need to allow Deborah Fisher-Stout, who's been very helpful in educating me. I'm not a train guy by trade. I'm getting labeled to be the train guy, but that's okay. But Deborah has been a great resource of information, as with a number of people. But Deborah deserves a moment here to recognize what we're accomplishing today. Deborah, what you say?
Thank you, Pete. Well, it is a joy to be here. Some of you may not know that the Northern Flyer Alliance began in 2006. Could I see a show of hands for those of you that have heard of the Northern Flyer Alliance before? Very good. No, about a third of you. That's great. We actually started as a result of Visionary in Wichita. Do you all remember Visionary in Wichita? Well, Visionary in Wichita handed this effort to Autumn Heighthouse, which is here today. And Autumn was instrumental in getting tons of resolutions of support, a total of 90 resolutions of support. And then in 2009, we took those resolutions to the Senate Transportation Committee and said, this is a huge opportunity here, and there's some money to create this passenger rail corridor. Well, it certainly was a significant opportunity, and then the following year, we got a couple of bills passed. One of them was the Passenger Rail Program Act, and then the Midwest Interstate Passenger Rail Commission Act. So those were milestones in this effort. And then in January of 2012, I met with Pete, and he had kind of been prepped. I can't take all the credit, but he had been prepped by Shelby Smith and a few others about how important this was. And so when I was there, he was like butter in my hands. By the end of the hour, he said, I'm in. Just tell me what I got to do. Whoops. So anyway, I spent the next 4 months really communicating very heavily with Pete, and it was a lot of fun, and he has just done a fantastic job, and I couldn't be happier. I have to pinch myself sometimes to really fully understand where we are today. If you had asked me a year ago if we would be where we are today, I would have said, no way. But here we are, and thank you so much, Pete. Thanks, everyone, for coming.
Okay, the next announcement that was not planned was came recently and rapidly as well, and that is the fact that KDOT, who we've been working with very closely, Kansas Department of Transportation, they had authorized us now officially this week. They've authorized the City of Wichita to take the lead role in the grant application process for this, as we've talked about the federal. That is a big deal, and thank you, KDOT. There's studies and things like that, but KDOT, they've also offered assistance to allow the City of Wichita to pursue this application for the federal funding, which we've talked about. In addition to that, there's some studies, environmental studies, and there's one called NEPA and things like that. But they've also committed $3 million towards that $5 million. They've committed to do the NEPA study with us, again with us taking the lead on that, and that's just a monstrous positive step. And I want to thank KDOT. So if any of you know Secretary Mike King, he's fairly new to the state. He's a Heston native, and he lives in Heston. And him recognizing this, he's a business person. He was in the highway business, so to speak, before that, and so he's got good vision. And I really appreciate the friendship that we've developed with Secretary King, and Lindsay Douglas is the point person up there for KDOT. She's been awesome to work with, and so. With that as well, I'd like to, on behalf of the state, if you don't mind, I'd like to invite our local Senator Carolyn McGinn, who serves both in the Wichita area but has Newton, our friends in Newton, to come up and say a few words.
Let our chair from South Central Kansas go first.
Okay, all right.
There you go.
All right, we're going to let our chair from the South Central Kansas delegation, Senator Oleta Faust, to say a word first.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Senator Oleta Faust-Gudeau, and this year I have the honor of being the chair of the South Central Legislative Delegation. We have about 53 members in our delegation, and I can tell you that they are all supportive of this project. It's a beautiful day here, outside and inside, and especially for the city of Wichita and the state of Kansas, moving economic development forward. Job creation. This is great. I just have to personally say thank you to Deborah. She walked the floors of the state capitol for many years, and there are 165 legislators, and I think she went to every single room and talked to individuals to get them supportive of this idea. I want to thank Vice Mayor, Council Member Pete Meitzner. I see him on television. I tape all of the City 7 channel news so I can stay in touch with what's going on in Wichita when I come home from Topeka. And I've just seen his face on there every day, and I know this project will happen. This is great. I've grown up in Wichita, and I used to, I was down here downtown a lot, and then I've even came to pay my Cox communication bill here next door, and so this is great, just to connect all of us. I have a daughter who lives in Texas, and I understand that this will connect from San Antonio, Texas, all the way to Chicago. So anyway, it's great for the economy of our state of Kansas, and again, thank you so much for inviting me.
I'm Carolyn McGinn. I represent the 31st District, and we do have rail passenger travel up in Newton, Kansas, and it continued throughout the years. And if you want to get on the train, you just have to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and be there prior to the train taking off. So I think this project's going to be great. It's going to continue to improve and enhance what we do up at Newton and just make our whole regional area and our economy drive a lot stronger and be stronger. But Autumn and others I see out there, I remember when this started many years ago, and it was their dedication of the folks I see out there and Representative Podorf that kept moving this along. We have a group called Council of State Governments Midwest, and they have been very dedicated to this as well, and so that's been very helpful at the state level. And so I see this as a great new thing in history. You think about passenger rail, it's something that we remember our grandparents being part of that. And then as the evolution of the automobile became better and better, everybody wanted their independence. But now what we're seeing, especially with technology, as Councilmember Pete Meitzner said, a lot of people want to do work now. They want to either get on their computers or they want to text or whatever it is. But they can get more done if they're on a passenger rail train rather than driving. So there's so many things that are coming together here in 2013 that's going to be good for our economy and good for our state. And I want to thank the other mayors for being part of this and coordinating. And I also want to thank Councilmember Pete Meitzner for being the driving force of here lately to moving this forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Speaking of politics, it shouldn't go unnoticed that we've also engaged our federal delegation. I will recognize Mike Zamarla, who represents Senator Moran's office. And I haven't seen as somebody from Congressman Mike Pompeo's office here. Congressman Pompeo is being pretty supportive. Senator Moran is being pretty supportive. So we, as you see, we're having great support from a strong group of our state legislators and the federal legislators. And although at the federal level there's anxiety about spending and Amtrak as well, but as been told to me, if although it's got some of the word grant is written around there, but if we don't apply for the grant, it's not like it disappears. Somebody else will get it. So my competitive nature says that, we don't want this thing going over to Tulsa and Joplin and up to Kansas City. We want it to go this way. So lastly, I'd like to invite Gary or Chad. You guys bought this building, and you're going to be the centerpiece when we bring this sucker through. And if you want to say hi.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Real shortly, Union Station is a very iconic landmark in Wichita. We're very proud to have the responsibility and the duty to remodel this location and bring it back to life. We look forward to working with the historical attributes of the building and adding a little bit more pizzazz to it. Union Station will be a mixed-use facility, so we'll have office, we'll have retail, and we'll have a mix of restaurants. So these are all items that we think will continue to enhance the city downtown efforts and the Delano area, and so we look forward to doing that. Today is really more about the trains and Amtrak than Union Station, and so I'm going to leave the focus of that right here. But again, we're glad to be a part of the steering committee, and we also would like to see the importance of rail and Amtrak come back to Wichita. The passenger rail part is very important, but I think the biggest thing that we focused on is the commerce side. When we improve the Amtrak rail, we can move freight at a higher speed, which means more trains and more traffic. That gives us a business advantage to this area. So I think that's one of the most important things that we have looked at from the economic standpoint, and we think that that's a tremendous opportunity for the city of Wichita. Yeah. Thank you.
Very. Wait, that's a truck. How do the train guys do that? Anyway, okay. Again, I just saw Jeff Fleur from Wichita WDDC, Wichita Downtown Development. Jeff is a shining star in our community. He's making things happen downtown, and he's actually kind of excited about this building coming back to life and what we've got going on. And Jeff, thank you for showing up and being supportive here as well. So we're going to wrap this. Oh, there's Susie Allstrand back there with GWEDC. She thinks that this is kind of a big deal. She's like that. So anyway, so we'll close this out. But we're not done yet. There's a 185-mile gap that we need to close. I want to thank, for the record, again, Mayor Sly James from Kansas City, Missouri, Mayor Mick Cornett from Oklahoma City, who's just been outstanding as well in this, him and his staff. I want to thank the city of Oklahoma City and Mayor Cornett. And then, of course, our own Mayor Carl Brewer, who's coming back from he's been out of the country. He's flying back right now, and Mayor Cornett wanted to be here, but he's going to Memphis to watch his Thunder play tonight in the NBA playoffs. So we've got our own Thunder, but it's not quite the NBA deal. But anyway, so we're not done yet. But this is an example of when forces come together, what we can do as a community. And I'm going to plan to continue to get this done. It's been a kind of a fun run. I had no idea that we could get this far. But we will not quit until we understand that it's impossible to do. And right now, it's not impossible, and we're going to work to get this done as soon as possible. So thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.